Welcome my dudes to another episode of Picks to Watch. The summer is here, and so I got the summer body ready to bring you some fun and interesting champions that are making their way into pro play. Without further ado, let's flex right into it. After a plethora of AD carry item changes, it's high time for Lucian to dash his way back into the limelight.
Scare me.
The decreased cost of Blade of the Ruined King, coupled with changes to Essence Reaver, have made it easy peasy for the Purifier to relentlessly pursue his enemy. His typical build starts with the Blade of the Ruined King, followed by a Black Cleaver, and rounded out by an Essence Reaver, which gives him more than enough firepower to light up his foes. While his damage potential is immense, he's got two glaring weaknesses. Number 1 is his lack of CC, and number 2 is his short range. Therefore, he can struggle in lane and teamfights because he's got to be up close and personal to dish the damage. On top of that, having no CC makes him vulnerable, while also forcing him to be reliant on his buddies to light the way and set up plays. To compensate for these weaknesses, his kit is packed with mobility and bursting with damage. If he's paired with an engaged support like Braum or Thresh, the dueling marksman can light sling his way through even the hardiest of enemies. But the mid game is where Lucian truly shines the brightest. Essence Reaver completely unlocks his mobility, self-peel, and damage potential, allowing him to cull the weak and blaze through health bars if left unchecked. With the proper partners and setup, Lucian can bring harrowing destruction to the Rift, but without it, he'll find himself the one racing towards the light at the end of the tunnel. Our next pick is rocking and rolling a path out of her conventional role. It's Taliyah.
Feels good to be back.
On patch 8.11, a wide array of changes were made to Taliyah in order to tone down her in-lane supremacy. What's being created instead is an unlikely, albeit rock-solid jungler. Since subsequent rocks now have no damage drop-off, Threaded Volley can potentially deal a landslide of single-target damage, which has encouraged pros to pick her up due to her respectable clear speed. In addition to her quick clears and high damage, her passive gives her a surprising amount of additional move speed, making her able to swiftly move through the jungle to gank. Speaking of ganks, Taliyah's are quite solid, because of the large area that her unraveled earth can control. It gets even better once she hits 6, because her Weaver's Wall can easily get her within a stone's throw of the enemy and put them uncomfortably between a rock and a hard place. Pros love picking up Electrocute for the extra burst, while also prioritizing Runic Echoes and Umbrellonomicon in order to reduce their foes to rubble. They'll often follow that up with a Liandry's, Zhonya's, or Rylai's, depending on the Stone Weaver's needs. Because she has no easy escapes built into her kit, Taliyah can fall prey to aggressive gap-closing junglers that love to duel in the early game. If she gets caught clearing camps, it becomes easy work to mitigate her damage and ground her into dust. Next up, we've got a Darkened Blade with a thirst for blood. It's Aatrox.
Hesitation is death.
While no large changes have affected Aatrox's standing directly, the changes swirling around him may finally bring him into pro play. The introduction of Conqueror is one of those changes that synergizes bloody well with his dueling nature. In addition, the rising popularity of Guinsoo's Rageblade has inspired Aatrox players to give it a go, because Aatrox can proc Bloodthirst or Blood Price twice, giving a huge boost of damage or sustain that can quickly turn the tides of a duel. Most players opt for an early Hydra for the extra wave clear, followed up by a Guinsoo's for a gigantic mid-game spike. The problem here is that he's rather dependent on these items, so if you're running an Aatrox, make sure you're hellbent on getting him ahead. One of Aatrox's greatest strengths in the side lane is that he can stick to his foes tighter than a lost soul to a Darkin weapon. The increased range from his Massacre, combined with the slow from Blade of Torment and a Dark Flight gap closer to boot, mean that he can relentlessly torture fleeing enemies before sending them to the grave. On top of his great sustain, Aatrox's dueling gets downright terrifying when his passive is fully stacked, as the extra attack damage and attack speed make him one of the hardest champions to effectively take down in a heads-up brawl. If he finds himself bested in combat, Aatrox's Revival can grant him a second chance to load his last save and claim victory. As with most split pushers, he has trouble teamfighting due to the heavy single target damage built into his kit. But if he can somehow manage to flank the enemy backline, blood is sure to fall. Now our final pick to watch looks at the bot lane. Some of you may have noticed that there are quite a wealth of champions showing up in that lane, so rather than pick a single one, I've decided to help you figure out what might show up. That does it for this episode of Picks to Watch. Be sure to go down into the comment section below and let me know which champions will be flexing their way onto the Rift. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.